Excellencies, sirs, and madams, we will now enter the presentation session of the event. This first session, which provides overview of future energy, will comprise deliveries from ACE colleges and from Professor Andrew Blakers of ANU. The first presentation will delve into the overview of renewable energy project trends in power sector and renewable energy long-term vision in ASEAN, which will be delivered by Ms. Zahra Safira, the Associate Research Analyst of Sustainable and Renewable Energy Department of ACE. Ms. Zahra, the time is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Veronica, for the introduction and also the time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, please allow me to introduce myself again. My name is Zahra Zafira. I am an Associate Research Analyst of the Sustainable and Renewable Energy team of the ASEAN Center for Energy. And today I will be presenting an overview of renewable energy project trends in the power sector and renewable energy long-term vision in ASEAN. Before we proceed any further, I would like to shortly present and also introduce ASEAN Center for Energy. As some of you may know, ASEAN Center for Energy, or ACE, is an intergovernmental organization representing the interests of 10 ASEAN member states in the energy sector. And ACE produces outputs as per 3 critical roles, which are as a catalyst, knowledge hub, and also think tank. And as a think tank, we try to identify innovative solution related to the energy sector, where the output can be in the form of policies or regulatory frameworks, as well as any other research analytics. And then we also provide a knowledge depository for ASEAN member states, which can be used to reach our goal as a catalyst to unify and also strengthen the ASEAN energy cooperation. And in connection to our role, we aim to reach and develop the energy sector based on the regional blueprint, which called the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APEC. APEC itself has 7 program areas, which are the ASEAN Power Grid, or APG, and then Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline, Clean Coal Technology, Energy Efficiency and Conservation, Renewable Energy, Regional Energy Policy and Planning, and also civilian nuclear energy. And for the renewable energy, ASEAN has a regional target to increase the share of renewable energy to 23% in total primary energy supply and 35% in installed power capacity by 2025. And related to the first renewable energy target, which is to increase the renewable energy share to 23% in total primary energy supply, based on the updated data reported in the 41st ASEAN Minister on Energy meeting, or AMEM, joint ministerial statement. The current renewable energy share in total primary energy supply has reached 15.4% in 2021. And the share itself has increased by 7.1% from 2020, where the largest share came from the solar and also wind energy. However, based on this scenario developed in ASEAN Energy Outlook 7, this actual renewable energy share in 2021 still falls short by 2.5% to be projected to reach 23% by 2025. So in order to fill the gap to reach the APEC target, more innovative measures are required, especially in the end-use sectors. And then, meanwhile, in the renewable energy share in installed power capacity, it has reached 33.4% in 2022, which decreased by 0.2% from 2021. However, based on the Power Development Plan implementation, the renewable energy share in project is projected to exceeding the 35% APEC target and reach 38.5% in 2025. Despite the overarching renewable energy share target in installed capacity, the need to increase the share of renewable energy options is still very much needed due to the growing electricity demand. Based on the projected ASEAN total final energy consumption, or TFEC, the electricity will contribute 75% share of total energy consumption from the commercial sector only. The commercial electricity demand is also projected to increase with an average annual growth rate of 0.9% between 2020 and 2023, and 2.4% between 2020 and 2050. Not only from the commercial sector, the biggest electricity consumption also comes from the industrial sector, where it is projected to increase by 23% in 2025 from the 2005 level, and quadrupling the 2020 level by 2050. This indicates that the electricity demand will continue to grow along with the increase of economy and also industry. Therefore, ASEAN will need to increase the electricity supply by tapping into more renewable and sustainable energy options to fulfill the growing demand. And moving on from the status of renewable energy share and projection for the electricity demand, we will further analyze the renewable energy trends in power sector based on the renewable energy project development. Leveraging the data we gather from the Global Energy Monitor and ASEAN Power Updates, we analyze the renewable energy trends by categorizing the renewable energy projects into 3 phases from the project development status. So the 3 phases are the current, which means that the project is already in operation, and then near term, which are the renewable energy projects that are currently still under construction up to 2028. And also long-term, which are the pre-construction renewable energy projects and predicted to start operating between 2023 up to 2037. The first renewable energy source that we will see is the hydropower projects. Based on the data, almost all ASEAN member states prioritize the hydropower, which can be seen from the growing capacity of operating hydro plants across all region. And in the near term, hydropower projects contribute up to 9 gigawatts of power capacity, spanning from Vietnam, Myanmar, Malaysia, Laos PDR, and also Indonesia. And looking ahead to the long term, the current pre-construction hydropower projects will boast a total capacity of 97 gigawatts by 2037, with the projects mostly located in Philippines, Myanmar, Laos PDR, and also Indonesia. And then following hydropower, we will examine the trend in geothermal power plants. So data reveals that Indonesia and the Philippines are the key players in prioritizing geothermal resources within the ASEAN region. And so in the near term, Indonesia stands out as the sole country with the geothermal power plants that are currently in construction, which boasting a total capacity of 450 megawatts by 2028. However, we can also see that the Philippines in the long term will have multiple geothermal power plants projects in the pre-construction phase alongside with Indonesia, projecting a total capacity of 1.4 gigawatts. And another renewable energy source that we will analyze on the country by country trend is the solar PV projects. Currently, Vietnam leads with the highest number of operational solar PV projects, trailed by Thailand, the Philippines, and also Malaysia. And then both Vietnam and the Philippines have ongoing solar PV projects slated for construction and anticipated operating between 2023 and 2028. And these projects collectively contribute 3 gigawatts. And looking further ahead in the long term, it reveals that the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and also Indonesia as key players with solar PV power plants in the pre-construction phase right now. The database indicates that a total capacity of 18 gigawatts for all of these projects. And then for the wind energy projects, it can be seen that wind energy projects is prioritized mostly in Philippines, Thailand, and also Vietnam. In the near term, we anticipate the deployment of 1 gigawatt of wind energy projects, primarily distributed across Laos PDR, Philippines, and also Vietnam. And looking further ahead, a significant influx of wind energy projects is expected, where currently wind energy projects that are in the pre-construction phase have a total capacity of 34 gigawatts, with the development predominantly located in Philippines and also Vietnam. And after analyzing on the country by country level, it's evident that at the aggregate level, that hydropower remains as the primary contributor to the current operating and near-term renewable energy power plant capacity. However, based on the data of the pre-construction in renewable energy projects in ASEAN, we can also indicate a substantial increase in wind capacity over the next decade. So this growth in renewable energy power capacity won't be exclusive to wind energy, but will also encompass contributions from hydropower and also solar PV sources. And exploring renewable energy trends within the power sector necessitates the development of a comprehensive guidance and also pathways for the regional integration and utilization of renewable energy potential. And because of that, we plan to create the ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap. The ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap aims to chart pathways for the development of renewable energy with considering new and also emerging sustainable systems in a rapid changing economic and also global environment. This roadmap will integrate insights from the Renewable Energy Outlook, energy database like AIMS-3, and also align with the ongoing development of ASEAN Energy Outlook 8. And the development of this roadmap will be divided into two stages, which are the first is the creation of a harmonized framework, and then followed by the development of the actual ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap. The framework will help to address the diverse ASEAN member states' priorities and also fostering streamlined planning and policy development across ASEAN. And we will also plan to propose a short, medium, and also long-term renewable energy targets based on the analysis of shared responsibilities and also contribution of ASEAN member states to the regional targets. The roadmap will then analyze and identify pathways to achieve these proposed renewable energy targets. And previously, we have the last focus group that we have for ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap resulted in several agreements and also actionable ideas. The key outcomes include agreement of a regional framework for and also platform for long-term renewable energy cooperation. Establishing a platform for resource and also knowledge sharing is deemed crucial, serving not only to update each country's renewable energy status, but also as a platform for sharing lesson learned, key priorities, and also best practices towards the regional goals. And furthermore, the discussion also underscored the need to explore mechanism beyond the ASEAN Power Grid to optimize regional renewable energy resource sharing and also supporting both national and also shared regional objectives and priorities. So after analyzing the renewable energy project trends, we can see that most ASEAN countries' major power capacity plans still comes from baseload power plants such as hydropower and also geothermal. However, we also indicated that there will be a significant capacity addition from wind and also solar PV in the future. And because of that, with the growing use of variable renewable energy, the need to use energy technology system such as pumped hydro energy storage will also rise. Therefore, fostering knowledge sharing as part of the ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap implementation will drive the adoption of new renewable energy technologies, including the pumped hydro energy storage across all ASEAN nations. And furthermore, this technology adoption will also be very instrumental in facilitating renewable energy regional sharing, particularly in terms of shared supply chain. And that is why, sorry. That is why this workshop and also the study that we will conduct with the ANU team on pumped hydro energy storage mark as a significant milestone, where we also hope to indicate not only the best potential pumped hydro energy storage sites, but also to delve into other relevant factors related to the implementation of pumped hydro energy storage in ASEAN region, such as the policy and also regulatory framework, to then define its role with the broader renewable energy long-term vision and also cooperation across ASEAN region. And that marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope this presentation can give an overview of the renewable energy landscape and also the plans in developing the renewable energy long-term roadmap. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and I will give the floor back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zahra, for such a comprehensive presentation. And now on to the next presentation. Let us welcome Ms. Rika Safrina, Senior Research Analyst of Modeling and Policy Planning Department of ACE, to deliver her presentation. The floor is yours, Ms. Rika. Ladies and gentlemen, please wait for a moment, for there is a technical issue with the slides.
Yeah, very good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Hope you are all in good health, and happy Ramadan to those who observe. Thank you very much for having me in this capacity building. I would like to present to you about the projection of RE penetration in the ASEAN Energy Outlook. So first of all, I would like to introduce you about ASEAN Energy Outlook, or AEO. Why ASEAN needs AEO? So AEO complements the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAEC, and its 7 program areas. As you know, APAEC is our guideline or blueprint document for advancing ASEAN energy sector. AEO supports the creation of pathways for achieving the regional targets. The current aspirational target set in the current APAEC is 32% energy intensity reduction by 2025 from 2005 level, and also 23% RE in total primary energy supply and 35% RE in installed power capacity by 2025. So these indicators targets should be monitored regularly whether ASEAN can achieve them on time. And AEO is guided by the program area number 6, REPP, Regional Energy Policy and Planning, Action Plan 1.2, which is to publish regular regional energy outlook and strategic reports on thematic issue. If you would like to read more, I think, yeah, you can download the APAEC document through ACE website. So ASEAN member states should be very proud and promote this flagship publication, because the development of AEO requires strong collaboration with all 10 ASEAN member state focal points during every process. First, we collaborated and consulted with the experts from all 10 ASEAN member states through individual country visits for data collection, scenario discussion, and validate again the key assumptions for our model. Secondly, harmonization in the model. So each ASEAN member state model, the country model, is done individually in one regional environment. We use tools called LEAP, making it possible to standardize the data for all ASEAN member states while still able to analyze individual country. As you know, sometimes the data template from each country has different templates and data format. So we try to standardize it. Last but not least, we validated again the collected data because sometimes there are missing data gaps. Then we collect it from external sources, and then we validate it again with the ASEAN member state focal points. So as you can see, there are close constant coordination with the focal points of AU. So this is the history of AO. In the beginning, it was mostly developed by third party or external parties with ACE only as the facilitator. Along the way, ACE took up more responsibility in the modeling and writing works. Until the latest version, AO7, which was launched in September 2022 during the 40th ASEAN Ministers on Energy meeting in Cambodia. In AO7, ACE has achieved a huge milestone by performing up to 100% in modeling and writing works, cementing ACE status as a think tank, ASEAN Energy Think Tank, and further embodying the spirit from ASEAN by ASEAN to ASEAN. Now we are developing AEO8 with the same arrangements with AO7. So AEO is ASEAN flagship publication that is planned to be published every 2 years. So AO7 was in 2022, so AO8 will be launched this year in 2024. So this is the milestone. So AO8 is being even more crucial because the region now is preparing for the next cycle of APAEC. As you know, the current APAEC will end in 2025. So one of the differences to direct the pathway for the next APAEC cycle. So fully supporting the Law PDR ASEAN's chairmanship this year, AO8 will be launched in the 42nd AMEM in Vientiane in September this year. The work officially started during the kickoff seminar in ABF last year in Bali. And then it continued with the first workshop with the ASEAN member state focal points in Bogor, Indonesia last November. That first workshop also included the capacity building on technology roadmap and ICT for data analysis. And then we've just finished all 10 country visits to present basic scenarios and also validate data and key assumptions again for our model. We are also using that opportunity to gain more insight and aspirations on the next cycle of APAEC post-2025. So now we are improving our model based on the results of those 10 visits. And then the next is the second workshop will be planned in May 2024 before the RE-PSSN meeting. In this workshop, we aim to share the findings, the preliminary results for all scenarios. And we have received support from P4I actually on this, which will also include capacity building on carbon neutrality measures. So upon the finalization of the report, we will submit the drafts for the review, maybe in July or August 2024. The review process will take a quadruple helix approach to also include experts from the governments, including SOME, SSNs, SEBs, and AU8 focal points, of course. And then also including communities such as international organizations and dialogue partners. And then industry, we also think that the industry point of view is very important. And also, of course, academia, including universities and research institutions. So the development of AU8 is also aligned with several other energy studies and initiatives in the region, including ASEAN strategies for carbon neutrality. And then APAEC next cycle, RE long-term roadmap, AIM3 or ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan Studies 3, ALERT or carbon emerging technologies, which discuss about hydrogen and ammonia. and then biofuel roadmap and other energy studies in the region. Also, in one of the sub-chapters that we plan for AO8 report later, we will deep dive the analysis for variable renewable energy, including storage. So perhaps the result from capacity building in pump hydro storage to energy storage in these 2 days will be also beneficial to be as an input for our AO8 report. The whole development of AO8 received several supports, including from Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI Japan, the Norwegian government through ASEAN Climate Change and Energy Project Accept Phase 2, the USA through Smart Power Program, Australian government through Partnership for Infrastructure or P4I, Energy Foundation China, and many technical partners. So now let me show you several analyses we built from AO7, our previous version that was already launched, especially in relation with renewable energy and energy storage. First, about the short-term prediction this year and next year. Here is the graph of ASEAN energy demand projection by fuel in the next 2 years across scenarios. So baseline is business as usual scenario where we consider the only historical trends without any policy intervention. The second scenario is called ATS or AMS target scenario, which considers the national policies and targets. APS is APAIC target scenarios, which considers the regional targets in 2025 and raising ambitious efforts beyond 2025 based on AMS inputs. So we found that the regional energy demand is expected to increase by 21% by 2024 from 2021 level with no policy intervention. Still in baseline scenario, fossil fuels are projected to continue to dominate the energy sector, with oil still dominated the largest share, about 46% of energy consumption. And then fuel shifting policies in ATS or national target scenario will slightly raise the amount of electricity by 9% and bioenergy by 2% in compared to baseline. This is resulting from the electrification of cooking and more stringent EV deployment and biofuel mandates in several ASEAN member states. The use of more efficient technologies throughout all end-use sectors will significantly reduce the fossil fuel portions. With stronger regional efforts in APS or regional target scenario, the avoided energy consumption could reach 11.3% in 2024 as compared to the baseline. The avoided energy consumption under APS will be the greatest in transportation and industrial sectors in 2025. So now, I think this slides are already explained before by Zahra when we are tracking the current status of regional targets. First is the reduction, EI reduction targets. The target in APAC is 32% reduction by 2025. As of data in 2021, the EI reduction reached 25.9%. The same trend of national policies or ATS would result in 29.2% energy intensity reduction. So there is about 2.8% gap to reach the aspirational target. In terms of RE in TPS, as of 2021 data, the updated RE share in TPS reached 15.4%. So the same trend of national policies would result in 17.5% of RE share in 2025, 17.5%, while the target is 23%. So there is about 5.5% gap to reach the aspirational target. How about RE target in installed capacity? As of 2022 data, the updated RE share in installed capacity reached 33.4%. And continuing national efforts, it would lead to the achievement of the regional targets more than the regional target. So we can say that the ASEAN is on track to reach the RE target in installed power capacity, but not so much in RE in TPS and also EI reduction target. So in line with the rapid economic growth, The regional energy demand is expected to triple that of 2020 levels by 2050, as seen in this graph. The national energy efficiency measures in ATS scenario will help to greatly reduce total demand by around 40% in 2050 compared to baseline. With stronger regional efforts in APS scenario, the avoided energy consumption could even further reach 53.7% in 2050. Industry and transportation sectors continue to be the highest energy consuming sectors in the region. The fuel switching mandates and electrification, coupled with the use of more efficient technologies throughout all end-use sectors, will significantly reduce the fossil fuels portion, especially for oil in transportation. The rapid growth of bioenergy, so the bioenergy is quite potential in reducing the energy consumption in the region. Bioenergy is an essential tool that can diversify the energy consumption within ASEAN. That was energy demand. How about energy supply? Energy supply continues to grow, reaching 4 times from 2020 level to 2050 in baseline scenario. You can see the importance of energy efficiency as well in the energy supply. It shows that it can reduce the energy supply to 3 times in ATS and 2.7 times in APS. LCO scenario, we have also a scenario called least cost optimization in our AO7. In LCO scenario, it could reduce the supply further to 2.5 times. In all scenarios, fossil fuels still dominate the energy supply mix. Even so, increasing share of RE can be observed, especially in achieving the national and regional targets. In the long run, RE share in TPS by 2050 is projected to reach 23%, and in ATS and 28%, 28.7% in APS. Geothermal, solar, and wind play a crucial role in increasing the RE share in the future energy supply. So this is in the electricity. The LCO scenario, the least cost optimization scenario, although it shifted the energy mix away from natural gas due to its uncompetitive price, but we see more coal, bioenergy, and hydro as the base load. This produces lower costs, mainly from efficiency in the fuel cost and capital cost. Emerging technologies such as nuclear and storage enter into the mix in the LCO scenario. So the role of storage will be crucial in providing baseload, in helping increasing variable renewable energy in the region. Yeah, storage can be used to provide store power during midday peak hours, overnight periods, and other times when solar and wind generation are reduced. So they are projected to be crucial in enabling higher penetration of RE and maintaining the power grid stability. And then in the LCO scenario, as mentioned by Dr. Nuki in the welcoming remark, the region is expected to require about 27 gigawatt of storage capacity to store about 1,100 gigawatt hour of electricity by 2050. Following the strong RE deployment, one of the impact is the creation of more green jobs in the region. In APS, it is projected to provide up to 5.5 million new jobs in the construction, installation, and O&M jobs by 2050. About 60% of this would be involved for the hydropower plants, followed by 19% solar in solar plant and 10% in geothermal. RE job creations in other scenarios is significantly lower due to the lower renewable plant capacity additions, which is about 4.5 million RE jobs for ATS and 3.2 million jobs for the LCO scenario. These RE job additions is projected to be dominated by Vietnam and Indonesia. Among other secondary analysis that we analyzed, including the GHG emissions and land use for biofuel. In 2050, the annual GHG emissions from energy system would reach about 6.7 gigaton CO2 equivalent in baseline. This is without international transport emission. The amount will be reduced along with the energy transition with more than half in APS, about 2.9 gigaton CO2 equivalent. In LCO scenario, the GHG emissions will be about 3.1 gigaton CO2 equivalent, mainly from the power sector. In terms of land use for biofuel, about 8.8 million hectare of land is required to produce biodiesel, assuming from oil palm, and 2.3 million hectare for bioethanol. Or in total, it is about 2.5% of the ASEAN member state land mass. Biodiesel reduces while bioethanol increases in ATS due to differing policy setting in ASEAN member states. So these are several recommendations to meet the APAC targets, especially in the supply side, because if we talk about renewable energy, so sometimes the challenge are in the power purchase agreements or PPAs that prioritize the dispatch of the generation capacity from plants that already under contract and the limited abilities of the grid network for high uptake of renewable energy. So this technical and regulatory barrier could be solved by implementing more smarter and more flexible grid infrastructures to address the higher penetration of variable renewable energy. And of course, with the storage system and digitalization. The region may enhance the dispatchability of renewable energy, like expansion of smaller size of hydropower into to support rural electrification, coupling with the solar power plants or wind, and with hydropower generation. Direct use of RE in the end-use sector may also have much impact in the deployment for electricity generation in achieving the APAC targets. So in summary, the analysis showed that although there is so much progress in the ASEAN member states, but the accelerated efforts are required to reach EI reduction target and also the RE target in TPS or total primary energy supply. It is recommended that in power sector, it is crucial to ensure RE penetration that goes beyond capacity and gets translated to higher generation. All renewable energy options should be optimized or considered according to cost marginally. For variable renewable energy, of course, energy storage should be developed, and grid modernization and interconnection towards stability, flexibility, and resiliency is a key. Beyond power sector, securing energy should also consider geopolitics, availability of key resources or potential sources, and improving domestic reserve. In the end-use sector, energy efficiency is a must, ranging from increasing fuel economy and promoting energy-efficient appliances or using MEPS standards, better demand management. Electrification should also be pursued, especially to remove oil dependency in transportation. In addition, the shift to more use of end-use RE, including bioenergy and solar heating, should be promoted. So yeah, navigating secure and resilient energy transition should be the theme of the region energy system. All technology and policy options should be addressed in a comprehensive way. So you can download our AO7 report through our websites through this link. In addition, we also just released the 2020 ASEAN Energy in 2024 yesterday, where we deep dive into the energy landscape trends and prediction in the region this year. We've also just released 2023 Energy Insights yesterday. Although it is not about the outlook, about the future, but it's quite interesting to see what's happening in the region last year. One of them is the renewable and alternative energy insights. So I think, yeah, all of this can be downloaded from ACE website. Yeah, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. Back to you, Vero.
Thank you, Ms. Rika, for your very insightful presentation. And we will move on to the next delivery on the integration of variable renewable energy into ASEAN power grid, which will be delivered by Mr. Akbar Dwi Wahyono, Officer of PFS Department of ACE. Without further ado, please, Mr. Akbar, the floor is yours, and please be seated behind me, joining Ms. Rika after your presentation for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleague of the RE-SSN and HAPUA members. Please allow my sincere gratitude for allowing me present into this capacity building on the pump hydro storage. And I know that you will be encounter a long hours today for many presentation, and but I hope that you can bear with me on the next 10 or 15 minutes, particularly on the relating to the topic of how we integrate the variable renewable energy within the ASEAN power grid, especially related to the study that we have been conducted together with the uh, 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 together with the advice and coordination with the HAPUA and the RE-SSN as well. Yeah, goes to the next. Yeah. As the quick short that perhaps my colleague already introduced what ACE and how we function as the international organization in terms of the intergovernmental organization within the ASEANs. We serve as the three basics roles as energy catalyst, and then the renewable energy hub, and then the think tank functions. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, and ACE has been taking the aspiration of the energy cooperation within this region by following the regional blueprint of our energy cooperation, or we call it the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or the APAEC. This blueprint has the spirit of enhancing the energy connectivity and market integration to achieve the affordable, accessibility, affordability, and sustainable energy for all ASEAN peoples. And in this regional energy cooperation blueprint, the energy sector in this region been divided into 7 program areas, and one that I'm gonna sharing you is the program area number 1 is the ASEAN Power Grid program area. Yeah, as mentioned by Dr. Nuki earlier during his keynote speech, that in order to achieve the renewable energy, we must take account the ASEAN Power Grid to achieve the target on achieving the regional energy connectivity, and also to allowing more energy penetrations. And with this with this program area, we particularly try to achieve expanding the regional interconnections or multilateral power trade among the ASEAN member states, which aim to strengthen the grid resilience as well, and to promote clean and renewable energy into the regional grid. And to do that, we have the 4 OBS. The first one is to accelerate the completions of the IPG projects, and as well as to initiate the expansions of the multilateral power trade. And the OBS2 is to setting the intergovernmental organizations and as well as the regulatory capacity to advance into the multilateral power trade. And the third OBS is relating to working on the harmonizing the technical standards as well as the other minimum requirement to achieve the multilateral power trade. And the fourth OBS is relating to this very particular topic, which is to integrate the renewable energy and other digital development into the ASEAN power grid. First, let me start with getting you into familiarized about the ASEAN power grid situations. As in the list here on the right hand side, yeah, we have the 18 potential cross-border interconnection list within the ASEAN regions, where currently out of the 18, nine interconnection is currently online or existing, and it only half of this is existing, and we have the number of interconnection capacity total around 7.7 gigawatt currently existing now. And by this ASEAN region itself, we divided into three sub-regions. In the up north, we have the north sub-region, which comprise of Vietnam, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Cambodia, as well as Thailand. These are the sub-Mekong countries. And then in the southern region, we have the peninsular Malaysia, Singapore, we have the Indonesia, which is part of the Sumatra here. And then as well as part of the Java Island as well. And then in the eastern side, we have Kalimantan or Borneo, and then which consists of West Kalimantan, and then we have Sarawak, Sabah, Brunei, and then the archipelago of Philippines. We see that many of it will needed subsea interconnections, either it from Sumatra to Peninsular, and then in order to connect this archipelago country of Philippines and Indonesians. So many challenges are facing for realizing these IPG aspirations. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, and this is the current effort of the ASEAN Power Grid, where currently we have the existing the multilateral power trade arrangements of the LTM first phase and the second phase. LTM is stands for the Laos, Thailand, and Malaysia Power Interconnection projects, which is been completed in 2019 and then replaced by the LTMS PIP. This is the extension of the LTM, which addition of the Singapore country to join these multilateral arrangements, where as of July, these four countries started from Laos sending the electricity to Sumatra, to Singapore via Thailand and Malaysia as the willing country, which as of July, the energy traded is amounted 265 gigawatt power has been traded through these four countries, and other progress outside the LTMS PIP. We have the AGAT and TNB collaboration, where they try to upgrade the current interconnection capacity, where they're planning to increase the LTMS PIP interconnection as well as the capacity being traded. So they need to have the interconnection be ready for that. So AGAT and TNB currently doing the feasibility study on technical analysis for upgrading the lines. And the other line as well, we have the Indonesia and Malaysia feasibility study where I think the last 2 weeks, the PLN and USTDA has already announced the memorandum of understanding and for the collaboration on funding the feasibility study, which has consists of the two lines, Sumatra and Peninsular Malaysia lines, and then the other side is Kalimantan and Sabah lines. And the other efforts also relating to the new multilateral portrait, which in the Borneo Islands, which we call it the BIMP, which consists of the Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines. This is where the sub region happen in the eastern part of ASEAN. And we go to the VRE resource assessments, and based on the study that our department has concluded that it is estimated that the ASEAN has a technical potential for onshore variable renewable energy around 8 terawatt for solar and 342 gigawatt of wind. And we also identified 62 total of 62 of detailed site, including 42 of solar site and 22 potential wind sites. Yeah. As a flagship of our study at ACE, where we were responsible for development of the ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan study. This is the master plan for regional interconnections that has been the main objective of the APG itself, and where in this study we try to consolidate the wind and solar assessment that we conduct earlier, and then we try to consolidate this assessment into the 18 ASEAN interconnection projects on the 18 cross-border interconnections to in order to achieve the renewable energy target of 35% of the installed capacity. And in this study, we try to model each country represented by a single node, except for Malaysia, Indonesia, where Malaysia we divided into 3 nodes, or consists of Peninsular, Sabah, and Sarawak, based on the country province. And then Indonesia, we divided into 3 nodes, which consists of Kalimantan, Sumatra, and Java. And during this study, we run the model and in order to meet the performance criteria set by the AIMS3 working group at that time. And perhaps some of the team are already here to attend this workshop as well. And yes, and we try to consolidate this 62 potential site into cross-border interconnection projects to see whether this potential site is really technically and economically feasible to be as the part of the ASEAN power grid. Yeah, and in our study, we explore actually four in scenario. The first one is the base case. This is still as the power development plan, so no change. And then the optimum RE case, we develop optimized thermal, renewable energy, and interconnection capacities. And where we also, the third scenario is ASEAN target, ASEAN RE target, where we set the VRE penetration around 10 until 12% of VRE in 2025 and 15% in 2040. And then the fourth scenario is a high RE scenario where we try to set the target of VRE penetration we around 20 until 25%. And then later in that year, this four study has been conducted in 2020, and then we find out that the result of the our master plan study need to be updated because most of the country have updated their PDP. So we need to make some kind like another base case scenario where we name it as the updated PDB case, where this try to update the base case scenario here with reflect to the latest PDP per country. And this is the finding of the capacity expansion that we have within the AIMS 3. And under, I want you to see the three line here. First one is the base line, the base case line in the blue line, and then the gray line, the ASEAN RE target, and then the ASEAN high RE target in the yellow line. You see that for 2025, we try to look into this particular year, and the base PDP, we have 31% of RE share, and then for the ASEAN RE and the ASEAN High RE, we have 44%. And then later in that year, we try to update the baseline PDP. So we have the fourth line here in the red zone, in the red lines. So by this case, the RE share will increase from 31 to 39%, and this only leave us with 5% gap into the of the RE target in the regions. So the finding is that the ASEAN member state current effort is has the higher ambition of relating to the RE install capacity. And also, if we try to see the later years in 2040, the IMS itself is not too far from the ambition of the hypothetical of high RE scenario where the PDP is, the updated PDP is 42% in 2040, where the high RE scenario listed in around around 60%. So the new ambition set by the country is quite high for the next two decades. So however, if we see the breakdown of the technology here, the updated PDP and the ASEAN RE target, we see that massive decrease of coal here, where the coal is replaced by gas install capacity. And because we increase the PRE here, so we need some flexibility where it's more cheaper by gas to ramp up and ramp down the VRE variability, and that's leave us kind of the opportunity for the next phase of a ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan study, or AIMS, where we need to limit the gas as the replacement of coal, where we should aiming for more greener choice like pumped hydro storage or other type of storage, or perhaps a new emerging technology such as hydrogen and nuclear into this ASEAN Internet Interconnection Master Plan study. And this is the other result of the AIMS-3, which is the 18 potential interconnections, where we try to validate the three different scenario, updated PDP, ASEAN RE target, and the high RE target, where in the updated PDP result confirm that it validates the recent efforts of the ASEAN member state, which need to increase for the more interconnections in coming into later years in 2040 as well, and also that the updated PDP and ASEAN RE target scenario result could be provide a guiding insight for policymakers and as well as from the HAPUA members that into the low-hanging fruit of interconnection, which need to be first prioritized into realizations. And this is the result, another result of the ASEAN AIMS-3 is the environmental resulting to the of thermal power plant into VRE editions, where it's relevant to what our premises is, that we have the avoided emission of CO2 and nitrogen, NO2 in high RE scenario, as we massive different from the three other alternative scenario. And we also identify the potential air pollutants avoided in SOx, NOx, PM 2.5, and ammonia as well. Is still that the ASEAN RE target is having more decrease in the term of the this for different substance of pollutants. Yeah, I guess that's all. I also invite later in the Q&A session for another discussion. Yeah, I like to return to MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Akbar, for such a detailed overview of the integration of VRE into APG. Now, I would like to invite Professor Andrew Blakers of ANU, who is here with us to share about the global energy transition, the exponential rise of solar towards 50 to 100 terawatts and wind into the tens of terawatts range.
Thank you. So could I have the first slide, please? So my central message is that everything you have heard is going to be washed away by the rise of solar. Solar is going to sweep everything except wind off the shelf. Next slide, please. So this is the global net new generation capacity installed in 2023. Only solar is growing, and solar is completely dominant now in global energy construction markets. There's almost no coal, oil, gas, nuclear, geothermal, anything except solar being built with a bit of wind. And this is going to rise and rise. It's like film cameras in about the year 2000, with digital cameras just about to away. And this is the case with solar. This is a graph showing that the free market has delivered its verdict. Solar is the cheapest energy in history. It is being installed 4 times faster than anything else was ever installed in history. It is growing exponentially, and it's unconstrained. There is very little future for anything except solar with a bit of wind. So just have a look at this slide. This is 6 or 8 years of generation capacity data being built. Nothing is happening except in solar with a bit of wind. And this is not going to change. Solar and wind are going to dominate future energy. It has happened in Australia. Australia is not building anything except solar and wind. And it's going to happen very soon in ASEAN. I would say within a couple of years, it'll be obvious to everybody that it's almost impossible to build anything economically that's not solar and wind. This is the central message of my presentation. And it is the central reason why you need a lot of pumped hydro and batteries and transmission to cope with this tidal wave, this tsunami of solar that is going to sweep over ASEAN over the next 5 years. If it's happening in Australia, it'll happen in ASEAN. Almost nobody is building coal anymore. So this graph shows green as the renewables being constructed in 2022, and black is coal. So black, the coal is still being built a little bit in China, but coal is being closed faster than it's being built in most other countries. And even in China, solar and wind are being built much faster than coal. Coal has no future. What about nuclear? Well, it failed in the marketplace. So black is the nuclear capacity, nuclear generation at a global level. Green is wind, yellow is solar over a number of years. And you can see that this year or next, solar and wind will both pass nuclear. Nuclear has gone nowhere in a dozen years. It has failed in the energy marketplace. The only way nuclear gets built is if the government has a secret plan to support nuclear weapons, really. It's no private company chooses nuclear because it's wildly uneconomic compared with solar and wind. This is evidence from a free marketplace. What about hydroelectricity? Well, we're running out of rivers to dam, and hydro is being installed so slow compared with solar, 15 times slower last year. Come back in a few years, it'll be 30 times slower. And a few years after that, it'll be 100 times slower. Hydro has a very small future compared with solar. This is facts on the ground. So this is the global installed capacity for wind, solar, and hydro. Blue is hydro, yellow is wind, is solar, green is wind. So you can see that solar will pass hydro this year, and wind won't be far behind. So putting it all together, hydro, wind, solar, and nuclear, you can see it's completely obvious that solar and wind is where it's all at. It's not in hydro, it's not in nuclear, and it's certainly not in bio. And I'll come back to that in a little while. So wind is now past a terawatt, 1,000 gigawatts around the world. And it just so happens that the northern wealthy countries that have dominated energy discussions to date, that's Europe and United States and Japan, have fantastic offshore wind, really enormous, far more than they need, which is lucky because they've got miserable winter solar. But, of course, if you live in ASEAN, you have great solar all year round. You don't have a cold winter. So looking closely at ASEAN, redder is better. You can see that Vietnam has a mind-bogglingly good offshore wind regime, and so has the Philippines. There's a little bit of wind in some other countries, but really it's Philippines and Vietnam for wind, and every country has got great solar. And solar is built on the silicon solar cell. It's impossible to run out of the raw materials for silicon solar panels. It's what the world's made of. How much land do you need to go to 100% solar, or maybe 70 or 80% with a bit of wind and a bit of hydro? It turns out to be about 50 or 60 square meters per person. Less than 1% of the land area of ASEAN provides all of your energy. I saw a figure of 2.5% for providing biomass for transport. I mean, this is not going to happen because solar is so much cheaper and so much more efficient than the biomass route and uses so much less land. So within low latitude areas, which is all of Africa and the Middle East and most of India and all of Southeast Asia, we have high and consistent solar. It's always sunny somewhere. And you don't have a season where you have very limited solar like you do in northern latitudes. And this is where most of the growth in population and energy emissions and energy consumption is taking place. And it's where we are today. Focusing closely on ASEAN, you can see only in Vietnam, towards the northern half of Vietnam, do you have a lesser degree of solar. But every other ASEAN country has got unlimited solar. And Vietnam has the south, where there's great sun and great wind. And they're one country, and they can connect themselves. So this is facts on the ground. This is where world of energy is going. What you see here is yellow is the solar global installed capacity. Solar passed nuclear in 2017. Nuclear is going nowhere because it's far too expensive compared with solar. Solar caught wind in 2022. Hydro this year, gas next year, coal the year after. In 2030, there will be more solar around the world than all of oil, gas, coal, nuclear, all the other renewables, hydro put together except wind. This is facts on the ground. This is not political spin. This is the free market of energy telling you solar won the energy race. So how much energy do we actually need? Well, ASEAN is a rising economic powerhouse. It is not going to stay in the middle group of countries. It's going to rise to match Singapore, Australia, North America, Europe, in terms of per capita energy consumption. So at the moment, Australia, Singapore, all these other countries consume 6 to 12 megawatt hours of electricity per person per year. And ASEAN is averaging about 2. And it's not going to stay at 2. It's going to rise to catch Singapore. And then it's going to double or triple electricity production to electrify everything, transport, heating, and industry. That is another global megatrend, electrification of everything, to take advantage of the very low cost of solar and wind. And the cost of solar is going to halve in the next decade. It's already the cheapest energy in history. It's going to halve in price again. So in everything that we present today, the amount of storage you need, the amount of energy you need, we're going to assume 20 megawatt hours per person per year. That's double what Australia and Singapore currently consume. And that takes account of the electrification of everything and takes account of ASEAN increasing its affluence and its energy consumption to match Singapore and Australia. So if we just do a little calculation for the whole of the world, 10 billion people in mid-century, and let's assume that they are all affluent and all fully decarbonized and all consuming 20 megawatt hours of electricity per year with 0 fossil fuels, we're talking about 200,000 terawatt hours per year of electricity, of which about 8,000 will be in ASEAN. And this is the future. Solar rising continuously at 20% per year. It's like the rise of the digital camera, the rise of the computer, the rise of these other global megatrends and the fall and fall and fall of fossil fuels, most fossil fuel companies are going to have their very own Kodak moments over the next decade. Big investments stranded by solar and wind undercutting them. My next presentation, I'll talk about Australia, which is a global pathfinder. And ASEAN will be 5 years behind Australia. ASEAN will not differ from Australia. It will go to high levels of solar and wind because they are so cheap and so abundant and so benign compared with anything else. So I think this is a very important little chart. It shows the net generation capacity for all of the energy technologies in the world today. Low emissions, I should say. So about nearly 500 gigawatts last year of solar and wind was installed. About 20 gigawatts of hydro, but we're running out of rivers. That can never become large. Bioenergy is an awful way to make energy because it's so terribly inefficient compared with solar. It's 50 to 150 times less efficient in terms of energy capture per square meter of land per year. It's a hopeless way of making energy. You go electric with solar and wind. And nuclear, carbon capture and storage, everything else put together was 1 gigawatt. Plays 500 against solar and wind. And you need magical growth rates to make hydrogen, clean carbon capture and storage significant by 2050. When you're competing against a marvelous energy technology in solar and wind, which is already completely dominant in terms of global energy deployment and continues to fall in price and is unconstrained by anything. It's just not going to happen. Carbon capture and storage is not going to happen. There's not going to be a renaissance of nuclear. They failed in the marketplace. Solar and wind won. This is facts on the ground. A lot of nonsense has been talked about hydrogen. Hydrogen has no part in the energy, almost no part in the energy sector, because its round trip efficiency from electricity to hydrogen and back to electricity or motive power in a vehicle is about 25%. Whereas the solar and wind, if you keep it as electrons, either as pumped hydro or in batteries or direct use, is around 80 to 90%. You can't afford to throw away 3/4 of your energy for storage. That just doesn't happen because you've got such wonderful methods of doing it already, pumped hydro and batteries. That is the future of storage. And one of the messages we'll deliver is that pumped hydro is utterly unconstrained in ASEAN. You have so many sites, fantastic sites compared with what you actually need. You do not need to engage in nonsense with biomass or hydrogen or any of these other technologies. But hydrogen will be absolutely essential in the 2030s and 40s because you need hydrogen atoms to make synthetic jet fuel or ammonia or plastics. That's the future role of hydrogen, not in the energy system, but in the chemical industry. So off-river pumped hydro solves overnight storage. You need a lot of it for a solar-dominated system, as ASEAN will have. And fortunately, you have unlimited quantities of it. So in order to move rapidly towards high levels of solar and wind, the central message is stop buying fossil fuel machines. That means don't buy fossil fuel cars, go electric. Don't buy fossil fuel power stations, go solar and wind. Don't buy fossil fuel heaters in factories, go electricity. Electric arc furnaces and the like. All of this technology is completely off the shelf. And when you do this, you get rid of 75 to 85% of your greenhouse emissions without having to close any of your existing fossil fuel systems prematurely. You simply stop buying them and let the existing ones die and retire. For energy poor rural people, solar is a gift from heaven. It's a fantastic way to get solar in electricity into rural regions at very low price, much lower than you can get diesel electricity or other methods of energy delivery. We're talking about the fastest energy change in all of history. There's never been anything remotely like solar, the way it is growing so fast. Nearly 400 gigawatts of new solar last year. This is 4 times faster than anything was ever developed in all of history. And it's doubling every 3 or 4 years. And that's not going to stop because it is unconstrained. So we'll never run out of the raw materials to make solar. No greenhouse gas emissions. You end up with an extremely energy resilient energy system because you have billions of solar panels and thousands of wind turbines spread all the way across your country. And imagine if Ukraine had relied on solar and wind when Russia invaded. Russia would have could not have knocked out the electricity system because it would be a vast network of solar and wind rather than a small number of nuclear and coal power stations. And you get rid of urban smog, which I think is a very, very attractive benefit of solar and wind. So the key points are solar won the global energy race. The race is over, solar won. All energy analyses done assuming that solar has not won, will be washed away by the tidal wave of low-price solar that is coming, ready or not. Overnight storage is a solved problem. And as we'll show soon, if you doubt anything I've said today, come and look at Australia, where it's happening right now in your neighbourhood with similar resources to what you have. And you can follow what Australia is doing, learn from our mistakes, learn from what we did right, and do it even cheaper than we have done. I'll just come back to this slide. This says it all. Solar won the energy race. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will resume the discussion and presentation session under the session 2, Future Energy in Australia and ASEAN. Please feel free to take your snacks and also drinks back to your table, and we will commence the session shortly. Okay, as everyone is taking their snacks back to the table and also returning to their seats, I will call upon the moderator of the session. And the session will be led by one of my colleagues, Ms. Monica Merdekawati, the Research Analyst of Sustainable and Renewable Energy Department of ACE. So please, Ms. Monica, the floor is yours to moderate.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica, for the opportunity. Again, I'm encouraging our distinguished delegates and participants to come back to your seat because we will resume with another, like several others more great presentation from our experts from Australian National University. It has been really insightful and triggering session in the first one where you have a lot of questions, I believe. And we will follow up again with more knowledge in the upcoming presentation. So this session 2 will discuss about the future energy in Australia and ASEAN. The first presentation will be delivered by, again, Professor Andrew Blakers that will discuss into the understanding Australia at 40% renewable electricity today and 82% in 2030. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Andrew to the front, and I would like to also request your kind permission that we may extend this session to, because we have been like quite behind the schedule. So if it's okay, if we end the session 2 until 12:45, like 15 minutes late from the original plan, so we can allow more discussion for this session 2. And yeah, Professor Andrew, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll come back to this graph. If you remember only one graph in this whole 2-day workshop, remember this one. Solar won the energy prize. This graph says it all. Solar and wind. And everything else is hardly moving or is shrinking compared with solar. And ASEAN has very little solar at the moment, but it is not immune to the tsunami of solar coming to ASEAN because it is so cheap compared with alternatives. So this is a graph showing the annual generation for several countries. Green is wind, yellow is solar per person, and that's what really counts, the generation per person. And you can see that European countries are dominating annual solar and wind generation, except for Australia. So we're number 1 for solar and about number 7 or 8 for wind. The important point from this graph is that all of the leading countries are in Europe. They all share electricity across national boundaries, so they can send solar and wind to their neighbour today and import nuclear and coal and gas electricity tomorrow. Australia cannot. We are physically isolated. We must make this work alone. We cannot buy and sell nuclear or coal or gas electricity from our neighbours. And the key message is that we are finding it to be remarkably easy to do this. There has been no major issue in Australia as it moves now to 40% renewables today, 82% in 2030. There are no showstoppers. So this is the solar map of the world. Redder is better. So you can see ASEAN's pretty good. There are no cold winters in ASEAN. There's a small variation between seasons, unlike in Europe, where you could have 6 times as much solar in summer as in winter. And the solar is good because you're near the equator. So Australia has 1,200 watts of solar per person deployed. ASEAN is at about 50. So this is the reason why solar seems strange in ASEAN. You have so little of it. But a central message is that can change very fast if you open your markets and let it come. So this is a history of Australia's national electricity market from 2009 through to last year. Brown coal, black coal were dominant. They are still dominant, but they are shrinking rapidly. Hydro, which is blue, has barely changed. There's been no new hydroelectric systems built for the last 30 years in Australia, or nothing significant. Green is wind, coming in about 2010. And then rooftop solar and solar farms is the yellow. And it's obvious where Australia's future energy is going. Coal is going out backwards, gas is going out backwards, and solar and wind have won the race. It's no different in ASEAN. Price discovery shows that solar and wind are the cheapest way to do it. So this is the last 5 years and a projection, linear projection over the next couple of years of the Australian national electricity market. Black is black coal falling and falling. Green is solar and wind, rising and rising. Blue is hydro, which is not doing anything, just 7% hydro remains at that level because we're not building or closing hydroelectric power plants. And look at gas, which is red, falling and falling. Australia is the world's largest seaborne exporter after Indonesia of coal, and also I think the largest for gas. We are major coal and gas producers and exporters. And even in our country, coal and gas is not competing against solar and wind. Solar and wind are killing coal and gas even from existing sunk cost power stations. Open your market and watch the magic happen. Solar and wind will kill your coal and gas. And it's your solar and wind. It's not imported solar and wind. It's your solar and wind. So this is the month of October from last year, 31 days. You can see the proportion of generation in each day of that month. So brown coal and black coal at the bottom provides still most of it. Blue is the hydro, then green and yellow are wind and solar, with a little bit of gas, which is the orange in the middle. And you can see that over this month, the renewable fraction was 45%. It reached 70% for 1 hour. 70% of our electricity for 1 hour came from solar and wind. Highly stable grid, match of any grid in the world for stability. Wholesale market price, $28 per kilowatt hour, per megawatt hour. That includes the generation and the transmission and the storage. Does that price sound all right to you? $28. It's lower in summer because there's more sun and higher in winter because you have to burn more coal and gas. But that's where we're heading for energy prices, locking in $30, $40, $50 per megawatt hour from solar and wind. From our own solar and wind, not imported. So we stopped building coal and gas plants 12 years ago. We stopped building hydro 30 years ago. There's no way that hydro can compete with solar and wind now. Solar and wind is so cheap. We never went nuclear. And the only way we'd ever go nuclear is a massive government subsidy. But what is happening is lots of private construction of solar and wind, pumped hydro and batteries. There's a bit of government investment in pumped hydro. That's a special case because it's large national storage. And there's transmission, which is privately built, but it's a regulated monopoly. So Australia now has 45 gigawatts of solar and wind. We're about 12% of the way to zero fossil fuels. Get rid of all coal and gas out of the electricity system and then electrify everything. For that, we need about 400 gigawatts of solar and wind. We've got 45 today. So if you compare that with ASEAN, multiplied by the population difference, that would be equivalent to 1,100 gigawatts of solar and wind in ASEAN. So Australia is living where ASEAN can go. And that's the way it will go unless there's concerted government effort to stop it going that way. The only way ASEAN will not go solar and wind is if governments decide they want to preserve the fossil fuel industry. And we had a government in Australia for 10 years that wanted to do that, and it failed because we have an open electricity market that anybody can connect to. Your rooftop system or your solar farm or your wind farm. And our government could not stop that. And that's how Australia ended up as the global pathfinder for solar and wind. Open market, let the market sort it out. We live in a market economy, use that market economy. Private money, private risk, building the solar and the wind and the pumped hydro and the batteries and the transmission. This is facts on the ground in Australia. What are we doing to stabilise high levels of solar and wind, knowing that we're at 40% now, 80% in just 6 years' time? We have to get on to storage and transmission, and that's what we're doing. So we've got 3 existing pump hydro systems. We've got 2 under construction, about a dozen under serious planning, and lots of batteries going in, lots of new transmission, thousands of kilometres of new gigawatt scale transmission. No new dams on rivers. There is no new dam being built on any river for any hydroelectric or pump hydro system. It's all off river, away from rivers. Snowy 2.0, for example, is bigger than all of the batteries in the whole, utility batteries in the whole world put together. So if you want serious power, energy storage, you go for pump hydro. But if you want high power for short times, you go for batteries. It's not one or the other, it's both. Facts on the ground in Australia, we're at 40%, going to 82% renewables in 6 years' time. So this is a picture of Snowy 2.0 under construction. That's the biggest one under construction. $8 billion, 350 gigawatt hours of energy, 2 gigawatts of power. When you divide the numbers, you work out at $23 per kilowatt hour, which is about 10 times cheaper than equivalent batteries. And this is by no means the best pump hydro in Australia. The best pump hydro in Australia is probably half that price. And the best pump hydro in ASEAN might be a third of that price, because you have real mountains and we don't. As you'll see in later sections, we find pumped hydro sites in ASEAN with heads of 1,600 metres, with very large amounts of water per unit of rock that we move, and with very short and steep pressure tunnels. So ASEAN is just spoiled for choice for really world-class pumped hydro to support high levels of solar and wind. You don't have to invent anything, you just go and build these things in your country with your labour instead of buying coal and gas from some other country. So what happened to Australian prices as we move to high levels of solar and wind? Blue is the wholesale spot market price in Australia from 2012 through 2023. Red is the solar and wind fraction on the right-hand side of the graph, rising to 40% today. It's in US dollars corrected for inflation. And as you can see, nothing much happened to prices except for 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine and prices went through the roof. And although we are a very large coal and gas exporter, we pay world parity prices for our coal and gas. And so prices, we have a price spike. As a result of that, the national government and every state government in Australia decided we will go rapidly to solar and wind so that we never have another price spike. We are going to lock in cheap energy with zero emissions forever. Cheap, reliable, zero emissions forever by building solar and wind. That's a national consensus. That's where we go. So rooftop solar is one of the success stories for Australia. So anybody can put a solar system on their roof. 1/3 of dwellings now have solar power on their roof. And it's remarkably easy. You send an email to a company, say, I would like a solar system. They will look at your house on the internet. They will send you back a quote a few days later for 5 kilowatts or 10 kilowatts or 15 kilowatts of power on your roof. A few weeks later, a truck comes along and drops it on the roof. Next day, the electrician comes along and connects it up. The last day, someone comes and just checks that the electrics has been done correctly. That's it. At a price of about $700 or $800 per kilowatt. And for that, you get all your energy for the next 25 years. it is the best investment that a family can make of anything because it's risk-free, it's not taxed. And that's why so many Australian families now put solar on the roof. Pretty much every house, every building in Australia will have solar on the roof by 2030, unless it's shaded or there's some other problem with the roof. And you can get energy from your rooftop system for 2.5 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. You cannot get that from any other source. This is the cheapest energy in all of the world. And it's all private capital and all private risk and no government money inside. So Australia has a highly stable electricity system. We have an open market, anyone can connect. The price discovery of an open market is that solar and wind are very cheap, cheaper than anything. It's private money, private risk, it's not government money. Our government does not have to find the gigadollars to move to high levels of renewals. Our government regulates, it does not pay for this. It's private money for private investment, for private return, private risk. That's the way ASEAN should go, or could go, if it decided to move away from single buyer arrangements. Gas have become load following. Anyone who tells you that coal can't follow demand doesn't know what they're talking about, because under the pressure of a free market, coal power stations have all learned to follow the load, going from 50 to 100% every day. It's twice a day. So we're going to get to 82%. And this is going to be primarily driven to make sure we get there, because it's a government target. We are going to have reverse auctions to go from 40 to 82%. So companies bid to the government to say, I will accept a price band of 30 or 40 or $50 per megawatt hour. If the wholesale market price falls below that, you will pay me. If it goes above the upper level, then I will pay you. So it's effectively a way of ensuring that the investment is very low risk. And the government will almost certainly not have to step in any significant way to prop up price, because prices fall too low. But of course, if prices do fall too low, that's wonderful, because the entire population benefits from low prices. So it's win-win. Either the government is helping a little bit with the revenue of the solar and wind farm companies, or the entire Australian population is benefiting from very low energy prices. We win either way. The government is also, all governments are encouraging rooftop solar. And it's wildly popular. As I mentioned, most buildings will have solar on their roof by 2030. And our grid does not collapse. So anyone who says that, oh, you can't do that because it's going to be all these problems, blah, blah, blah. Their problems are all solvable. So in summary, let the market sort it out. The market has spoken. Solar and wind won the energy race. Now apply that to ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Andrew, for the insightful presentation. So before we are moving forward for the second presentation, I would like to give the floor a chance to ask for follow-up questions to Professor Andrew. Just checking if you have. If not, then let's move on. Let's move on to the second presentation. So I'm inviting Mr. Harry Towley from the and yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm very honoured to be invited to present. Today we're going to be talking about ASEAN's energy requirements into 2050 and beyond. We're going to estimate the energy requirements and therefore the power and energy infrastructure requirements into 2050. So first, let's talk about some trends in ASEAN. As I'm sure you all know, population is increasing, quality of life increasing, energy consumption per person increasing. People are moving from from rural areas to cities. There's industrialization, there's electrification. All of these things are going up. Things that used to be done by people and diesel and animals are now done by electricity, and this is increasing. In fact, the only thing that's decreasing is our carbon budget and the time until 2050. That means that enormous, sustained, well-planned growth in energy infrastructure is required to support the electrification and population growth in ASEAN nations. Factors in market factors in ASEAN can be split into three regions: legal, public, and economic. Most ASEAN nations have renewable energy targets. We heard earlier today, Indonesia's is 23%. Well, most recent one is 23% by 2050. There are public pressures. As statistics are reported, countries and public companies and private companies experience pressure to decarbonize. But perhaps most importantly, as we've been hearing, there's the economic pressures. Solar and wind are the cheapest forms of energy, and the price is falling. Also, international trade. The European Union has recently announced that they will be taxing imports with high carbon footprint. There are many market drivers towards renewables. This is energy needs in the ASEAN region per person, average. It's going up, and it's catching up to more developed nations. Here are some selected countries' energy use per person per year. As everything is electrified, we expect energy use per person per year to double or even triple by 2050 and 2060. By 2050, we expect that one person in a developed nation will use 20 megawatt hours in a year. And ASEAN nations are going to be very close to that 20 megawatt hours per person per year. So how do we give everybody the energy that they need? Hydro. We heard today that there's not enough dams, and we will talk about that more tomorrow. There's simply, it's a good source of energy, but there is simply not enough. Fossil fuels are expensive. They are unsustainable. Carbon capture and storage is not up to the task of reducing emissions. As other countries phase out their fossil fuel usage, the price of fossil fuels is going to go up, not down, as people stop digging coal and stop pumping oil and gas. Using fossil fuels leaves you open to international market volatility. It's not the way forward. Nuclear is expensive and it is far too slow to build. Solar thermal is far more expensive than solar photovoltaic. Geothermal, there's, again, not enough in the ASEAN region to meet needs. Bioenergy is very land inefficient. It competes with agriculture. So this is the wind resource in the ASEAN region. Red is better. You can see that there is a little in Vietnam. There is quite a good hotspot in Vietnam There are a lot of areas in the Philippines with very good offshore wind potential, but most of ASEAN has relatively poor wind potential. The solar potential, on the other hand, is very good everywhere, and it is not seasonal, it is more or less constant year-round. This means that future ASEAN grids will be dominated by solar. It is the cheapest, it is the most widely available in the ASEAN region. It is going to dominate the energy grid. So now we're going to estimate the future energy infrastructure requirements for the ASEAN region. We are assuming a grid which is 75% solar, 20% wind, and 5% hydro. The estimated population of ASEAN in 2050 is going to be close to 800 million. We are assuming 20 megawatt hours per person per year. That gives 16,000 terawatt hours per year. That's a lot higher than the estimates we heard earlier. ASEAN is going to need a lot of energy. About 13 to 14 times more than current energy demands. This is driven not only by quality of life improvements, but the continued electrification of everything. Jet fuel will be produced electrically. So what does that mean for our solar and wind capacities? It means we need 9,100 gigawatts of solar and 870 gigawatts of wind. This is a lot. I'm going to be doing numbers with offshore wind because that is more realistic for most of ASEAN, but there will be, in all likelihood, a mix of offshore and onshore. In terms of solar panel area, we need about 50 to 60 square meters per person. That is about 0.1% of ASEAN's total land area, which is a lot when you consider that ASEAN needs to grow its own food, it needs to house all its people. 0.1% is a lot of land. The wind turbines, you'll notice, take up even more than that, but wind turbines do not monopolize the land they're sitting on. I'm sure you've all seen wind turbine farm or photos of it. You can do things in and around them, as well as put them offshore. So land use can be made more efficient. We can use high density solar farms like this one pictured here, cramming a bit more solar into the space. These are slightly less efficient per panel. Each panel produces slightly less energy per year, but the land produces more energy. Rooftop solar. This is massive. Not only that, it allows rural populations cheap, easy access to power. That gives all sorts of improvements to quality of life and affluence, lighting, water, brain, computers, agrivoltaics. This is something you probably haven't seen. Growing crops underneath solar panels. The impact on plant yield is almost nothing. It is perfectly fine and doable. Solar panels over plants. Solar panels over livestock. Another great way to combine use of land. Biomass can't do this. If you're growing plants to burn them for biomass, then you can't be eating them. Offshore power, wind turbines. The sea is in a lot less demand than the land. Also, floating solar power. Indonesia, a recent study by our research group, Indonesia has 500 million terawatt hour per year potential for floating solar power. It is the best place in the world for floating solar power. Indonesia alone, by floating solar power, could provide all of ASEAN's energy needs more than 20 times over with floating solar panels. Now let's talk about cost, because I'm sure you're all aware that this is going to be expensive. The cost currently, the average cost in 2022 for installing solar was $800 per kilowatt. That includes not only the module, but the price of installing it, the price of connecting it to the grid, all of that. But that's the average price worldwide. It was actually cheaper in Asia. Offshore wind is more expensive, but you get more energy out of it than onshore wind. But we're still looking at a figure of $10 trillion in today's money for $10 trillion US for all the solar and wind. That comes out to a levelized cost of $47.90 per megawatt hour when you assume these things. I'm not entirely sure what the Indonesian or ASEAN average for power is, but I'm pretty sure that that's better. Storage capacity. We heard from a number of people how solar power is variable and it needs to be balanced. So if we assume pumped hydro, and you could put anything there, batteries, but we're going to assume pumped hydro for our cost. This is how much we would need. 1,800 gigawatts of power, 20,000 gigawatt hours. This is about 100 times more than the estimate you heard earlier. The pumped hydro or the energy storage requirement is enormous. That would cost about $2 trillion US, bringing our total to $12 trillion US. The levelized cost of storage would be about $10.80, bringing our levelized cost of electricity to $54 US per megawatt hour. Now, there is uncertainty in all of these calculations, but I want to just tell you that even though we're making a lot of assumptions, this is about as accurate as if you spent a really long time figuring out exactly what your growth potential is. Forecasting into the future is really difficult, but these approximate numbers give us a really good indication of how much this costs. Real interest rate you can borrow money for these projects at is uncertain. We've done the numbers for 3%, 5%, and 7%. And you can see the range is still quite small, even with very pessimistic interest rates, $70 US per megawatt hour. Asset lifetimes are variable. If we assume everything lasts 5 years less than we wanted to, $60 per megawatt hour. But prices are falling fast. If you did an analysis of what this would cost 5 years ago, it would be nearly double. $90 per megawatt hour. 2050 is 26 years in the future. 26 years ago was 1998. If you did this analysis in 1998, it would tell you that the cost was well over $350 US per megawatt hour. I can't be more precise than that because offshore wind didn't exist. So we don't even know what it would cost. Prices are falling so fast. Implementing this will be cheaper than what we are estimating today. Now, $12 trillion is still a lot of money, but governments do not have to bear the cost, and they do not have to bear the risk. Private capital can do that. Government's role should be in putting the right policy setting, regulatory processes, potentially stimulus if that's needed, but it is not. Solar is so cheap. Industry should bear most of the capital expense, and for that, they get to bear the revenue from selling electricity. $12 trillion of investment means a lot of revenue. So, in summary, ASEAN countries need to develop large-scale renewable energy infrastructure. These grids should be solar dominated. That is what fits ASEAN's resources best. Large-scale energy storage support is required. It is absolutely necessary. Land use concerns are solvable. There is vastly more resource than required. Remember, Indonesia alone, just with floating solar panels, can supply more than 20 times ASEAN's energy requirement in 2050. Costs and risks do not have to be borne by governments. They can be borne by private industry. Governments do need to provide policy direction. Thank you.
Let's move on to the third presentation. So I would like to invite Pak David Silalahi to present about estimating the future energy storage requirement in ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Monica. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to talk about the estimating future energy storage requirement in ASEAN. So we'll look closely for each country. Yeah, I will start with this slide. We all know that solar PV and wind are variable electricity suppliers or variable energy sources, and we have abundantly in ASEAN. However, demand and supply must be balanced for every second, for every year. And in order to have a stable, reliable electricity system, and that's why if we want to go 100% renewable electricity, we have to do some measures. The first, we can do the balancing considering technical diversity. So it is desirable to have both solar PV and wind. For example, for Vietnam. And we know also that sun doesn't shine at night, but wind often does, blows at night. When it's stormy weather, when the sun not shining, the wind is blowing, generating electricity. And often when it's calm weather, it's fine, and solar PV is generating. So together, solar and wind are better than either alone. So spreading solar and wind over a large area could hugely reduce the storage needed for ASEAN. So for example, if Indonesia connected from the west to east, or for example, from North Vietnam to South Vietnam, Myanmar, and Thailand, for example, so we can reduce vast amount of storage that needed in future 100% renewable system. And the third is we can do demand management. So we could shift loads from night to day to coincide the solar availability with the load. And also we can incorporate interruptible loads, for example, aluminum smelters, petrochemical industry that runs 24 hours a day. And finally, if we want to ensure a stable system, we have to provide mass storage that pump hydro will support the 100% renewable electricity. Currently, we have 97% of all storage globally. So pump storage is the solution. Other than that, we also have advanced batteries and many other viable options. So we can balance the 100% renewable electricity is a solved problem. Yeah, I think this slide already explained by Andrew and Harry as well. But the point is, when we go to 3 decades from now, 2050, we decarbonize all the energy system. We electrified all the transport, heating, industry, aviation. So we will need double or even triples of the electricity demand. So we can choose 20 megawatt hour per person per year for that kind of system, entirely decarbonized system. Yeah, so definitely solar needs fast overnight storage. In the future, for 10 billion affluent people, all electrified, decarbonized energy system, we will need 2 kilowatt per person. This to 20 terawatts, or 50 kilowatt hour per person, 500 terawatt hour. And we know that pumped hydro storage availability that we found in our research is 70,000 terawatt hour. It means more than 100 times of the required for a global energy storage. And this is equal to like 100 million big batteries, it's 700 megawatt hour, or 1,000 billion electric vehicle batteries, it's 70 kilowatt hour. So pumped hydro storage is such a huge potential that we can harness. So for the storage requirement in ASEAN, we can use a rule of thumb. It will be easier for us. We found it from several detailed studies. We can use 24 hours or 1 day of energy storage. And for annual consumption of 20 megawatt hour per person, we will need 50 gigawatt hour of energy storage per million population. And also it translates to 2 kilowatt per person or 2 gigawatt of storage power per million people. So this is the example of the studies that we have at ANU. So we can say easily that we will need 24 hours of storage, 50 kilowatt hour per person, or 2 kilowatt power capacity per person. So that's the rule of thumb. And using the rule of thumb that we use to estimate the energy storage, ASEAN will need 43 terawatt hours of storage, 1,600 gigawatt, and this will occupy about 2,200 kilometers square, or 50 kilometers square per terawatt hour. And how it looks like, this is, oh, don't have it. So the red circle, the small one, represents the 0.05% of Asian land. That's what we will need in the future. So we can say like, we can easily found that land. This is for Indonesia. So any participants from Indonesia, so this is what we need in the future. Using worldometers estimated population 2050, we will achieve 320 million people. And then we will need 17 terawatt hour storage energy, and it's equal to 600 gigawatt capacity. It will be enough to support the 100% renewable system in the future. This is for Brunei. Brunei only 500 million people, 3 decades from now. It only needs like 1 gigawatt storage power, 0.03. So probably its battery is enough to solve this problem. This is for Cambodia. Cambodia estimated to have 20 million people in the future. It needs 1.1 terawatt hour, 40 gigawatt. This is for Singapore. Singapore 6.3 million population, consume 20 megawatt hour per person per year, they will need 13 gigawatt storage power or 0.3 terawatt hour storage energy required. This is for Vietnam. I see some participants from Vietnam as well, from EVN. Vietnam will need 6 terawatt hour storage energy. In the future, it is equal to 210, but it may be less because Vietnam has abundant resource of hydropower, probably less than this number. And for Thailand, it's about 4 terawatt hour storage energy and 140 gigawatt. This is for Philippines. They will need about 9 terawatt hour, 320 gigawatt. And this is for Myanmar. Myanmar will need 3 terawatt hour and 120 gigawatt. This is for Malaysia. I see some participants from Malaysia as well, Sarawak and TNB, I guess. You will need for 41 million people, affluent Malaysian will need 2 terawatt hour storage energy and 80 gigawatt power capacity. This is for Laos. Laos about 10 million population. They will need half terawatt hour and 20 gigawatt. Yeah. So if we talk about the energy storage, so think about this, that pump hydro and batteries are complementary. They don't compete each other. So, but we need to understand that we can have pump hydro in a big scale, 0.3 to 10 gigawatt capacity, power capacity, and energy storage from 3 to 1,000 gigawatt hour. But batteries is only small amount of it. We know like Tesla battery, it's a gigapack. So it's still small size. But the most important thing is we can have smaller or low cost of energy storage using pump hydro. That's the point. And we also will have like 100 years, the lifetime, compared to batteries like 7 years, or the best is 10 to 15 years, the lifetime. And for pump hydro, we only use water. Water is non-toxic material and available everywhere. I think my colleague Ali will explain this later in details. And yeah, if you have time, then you can read these papers that we have at ANU group. So it's study for Australia, for ASEAN, for Bolivia, for Japan, Southeast Asia, and also for Indonesia. So in this paper, you can find how large the solar PV each country will need, and also how big the battery storage that they need in the future. Yeah, to conclude, I would like to emphasize that balancing 100% renewable electricity is a solved problem. Don't worry about it, and we can do that. Then pump hydro storage, the off-river pump hydro storage is the answer. Thank you.
So, Mr. Shahid Ali, I will invite you, and please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to you all at this wonderful event. So we had enough discussion today about that we need massive pumped hydro potential to support the transition to renewables. So my presentation is about that, what actually pumped hydro is and how does it work. I haven't gone. Sorry. Okay, so I'm Shahidri and I'm part of the NU team. First of all, because of the massive transition going all across the world to the renewable to fight against the climate change, you can see that by 2030, we may need like 48% would be from the renewables. And by 2050, about 90% of electricity will be from renewables. And about 70% of that is from solar and wind. So clearly, solar and wind, they are winning the race. You can see the trend going on. By 2030, solar is having a massive chunk in the overall energy landscape. And to balance that, we need various kind of storage, and pumped hydro is clearly winning compared to the other energy storage because of multiple, the advantages associated to it, and it's a massive storage potential compared to the other storage technology. So, what is pumped hydro basically? As pumped hydro is basically, two reservoirs at different heights, and they are connected, and we just use the excess renewable we have to pump the water from lower reservoir to the upper reservoir when the electricity is cheap and in surplus, especially at nighttime when the demand is not that high. And we use that by plunging the water down through the turbine to produce power, and use that when the demand is high. So you can see that they are separated by two reservoirs, the upper one and lower one, and the generator. It's not nothing new. It's been there since 1980s, and so in the 18th century, and it works like a traditional hydropower facility. But here the water can be circulated between the two. So here I show you the video of that, how the pumped hydro works. So you can see that when the sun is shining and the solar panels are producing power, they're basically pumping the water up. And now at the night time, so the generation is from the pumped hydro, and that's feeding the load. That's the night view generating from the stored energy, and that's the day view when we are pushing the water up. So in pumped hydro, there are like various kind of pumped hydro. There are basically two. One is on river and one is off river. On river has that's built on like ongoing river, but that has could have issues because of the flooding and the other social and environmental issues. But off river is very popular and available extensively, as also found through the ANU Global Atlas, that there are massive potential everywhere in the world. So in off river, it can be created anywhere where there is like good head available and lane available to build two reservoirs. So that's one example from Italy that has had about 500 meter and 6 gigaliter storage there. So that's one example from China. And within off river, we have like several other types there. So the good thing about off river pumped hydro is that there are 1,000 times more sites available, and have zero flat control cost, small footprint, and the key metrics are like they have large heads, and storage can be done in a gigawatt. So within this, so within pumped hydro, there are like various other types of river pumped hydro. There are various other types. For example, the greenfield sites, you look for completely two new reservoirs at undeveloped lane where there is good head. So they have pretty small footprint and plenty of choice. We can look for the good one where there's good head. We can go for any site where there's good head, and there is good infrastructure nearby, and avoid social or cultural or religious significant sites. And Bluefield, we take advantage of existing reservoirs, which are at different heads, and we connect them to operate as a pumped hydro. So mostly, when their reservoirs are already there, they could have like social license existing, and they could be nearby transmission road or access and water source, low reservoir construction cost because the reservoirs are already there, and no additional flat area for existing reservoirs. So this is the slide snapshot from the Snowy 2 concept. And there is also called brownfield. that we construct on the expired or like the mines that are not in use anymore. So, for example, if there's a gold mine, you know, there are two reservoirs there, gold mine sites, they are no more of use. We can convert that to a pumped hydro. Recently, a new study found about 906 brownfield sites across the world. About 37 of them are located in Australia. And this is from the Kidston gold mine in Australia. So they have the existing social license, nearby transmission road and access, because they are already, you know, the mining sites. So low reservoir construction cost, low additional environmental impact. So these are good advantages about the brownfield sites. And then there is ocean pumped hydro, where we use the ocean or the sea as low reservoir, and we look for like sites nearby to construct the upper reservoir, where there is good head, and we can also operate that as a. There was one in Okinawa, Japan, but that has, I think, closed recently in 2016. But now one more going on in Australia. No, I was, proposed, sorry, proposed. Yeah, one is proposed in Australia. So that is seasonal pumped hydro. Basically, you know, about like at one time of the year, you store the water somewhere, and you can use that later in the year, like could be for many days or, you know, months. So off-river pumped hydro, you know, they are outside the national parks. Combined reservoir area is small, 3 meters per square per person to support 100% renewable is what required. And, you know, 3 liters per person water per day to support 100% renewable. And, you know, that is what we water consumption to supply about 16,000 terawatt or annually to meet the global demand. We've been through this slide. So that's the quick snapshot of the ANU's Global Atlas, which will be like in the interactive session, we will be further explain to you about these sites. You can zoom them in. This is the ANU Global Off-River Pumped Hydro Atlas. That's in Asian countries and the greenfield. So we will be further discussing that in the interactive session. Yep, the red are the better one. Yeah, further we will discuss when we had the interactive session about these sites. So yeah. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Shahid Ali, for the insightful presentations. So moving on, we're going to the next session. So the next session is going to be interactive sessions. Oh yeah, sure. So for the next session is going to be presentation for the Professor Andrew Blakes before we go into the interactive session. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, so straight after my short presentation, we're going to divide the room into 4 groups, and an ANU person will be assigned to each group, and we'll open the Global Solar Atlas and the Global Wind Atlas and the Global Pumped Hydro Atlas, and we'll look at the solar and the wind and the pumped hydro in your country and explain how you use the Global Atlas, how you interpret the information, where is the information, if you want to access the detailed information, where can you find that? But just before we go there, I need to explain a cost model. So the reason for a cost model is that when you search across the global landscape to find all of the potential pumped hydro sites, you're looking for geographical shapes where a small amount of rock could produce a large amount of dammed water. And you can find billions of such sites, but most of them will be too far away from another one at a lower altitude to create a pair. Others will have many, many options, and you have to choose which is the best selection of an upper and lower reservoir. You might have one upper reservoir and 10 possible lower reservoirs. You have to choose which is the best. And so a cost model allows you to choose which is the best pairing, and also gives you a ranking which says this is not a very good site, this one's pretty good, and this one's fantastic. And that is in our atlas. We have AAA, AA, A, B, C, D, and E sites. And so if you've got them, you go for AAA sites. If not, you go for AA sites. If not, you go for A sites, and so on down the list. Fortunately, most of the ASEAN countries have AAA sites everywhere. So let's have a look at the cost model. So what is the cost of a pumped hydro system? The capital cost. The running cost is very low. A bit of maintenance, refurbishment after 40 years, almost all the cost is in the capital cost. Well, the cost is the transmission and roads. That's obvious. Then you've got to build some reservoirs, and you've got to build a tunnel connecting them, and you've got to put a pump turbine in that tunnel. And the pump turbine runs forwards and backwards. If the water comes down through the pump turbine, then you generate electricity. But if you put electricity into that turbine, you'll make it run backwards and it will pump. And roughly speaking, you'll lose 10% of the energy in each direction. So if you have 100 units of energy, then you'll pump water uphill and you'll end up with 90 units of energy in your upper reservoir. And then when you want that energy back again, it comes back down through the tunnel and you'll lose another 10 units of energy. So you start off with 100 and you end up with about 80. Batteries are typically 85 or 90%. So they're quite similar. This is called round trip efficiency, whereas hydrogen is 25%. You put in 100 units of energy into hydrogen and you'll get back 25 units, which is why hydrogen is a hopeless way of storing energy. Okay, so you see there an example of a really quite extraordinarily good site in Indonesia. Happens to have a head of 1,600 meters, which if anyone here is a hydro engineer would make your eyes pop out, because typically you get 200-meter head or so. But anyway, I'm going to go through and show you why a site like this is just fantastic. When you look on your own laptop, which is the dam wall, a very small amount of rock, the dam all of this area of land. You can see a blue line. That's the tunnel route going from the two closest points between the two reservoirs. So I now need to just talk a little bit about the physics of energy. You probably mostly met this if you did any sort of high school physics. Power is, for pumped hydro, is liters of water per second, or energy per second. And that's measured in watts, kilowatts, megawatts, gigawatts, terawatts. Energy is the amount of work you could do if you released it through the turbine. So the reservoir, the two reservoirs represent energy. If you want more energy, you can double or triple or quadruple the size of the reservoir. And you get, you might have 10 times more water. That means you've got 10 times more energy. But that's not related to power. You could put a 1 gigawatt turbine between two reservoirs, or a 2 or a 5 or a 10 gigawatt turbine. That's the speed with which you're taking the water out. Power and energy are two different things. And you need to provide a cost for both. You can have a huge reservoir with a very skinny tunnel that's got a lot of energy but low power. Or you could have a small reservoir or maybe a big reservoir, but with huge tunnels, or maybe 5 of them. And that would be high power. So the power is determined by how wide your tunnel is, how big your pump turbine is. And energy is in terms of terawatt hours, gigawatt hours, megawatt hours. So a gigawatt for 1 hour is 1 gigawatt hour of energy. So the red equation there is the only equation in the whole course, but it is energy storage is mass times gravity times head. Head is the height difference. That's the driving force. G is gravity. That's 9.8 meters per second. That's what keeps you to the earth. And M is mass of water. So mass times gravity times head times efficiency, which is about 80 or 90%. And the example I'm giving here is, I won't go through it, but you can translate the amount of energy you got into the head and the mass of water. So you can't do anything about gravity. That's what we all live with on this planet. On the moon, it would be 1/6. On Jupiter, it might be 10 times. But on Earth, it's about 10 meters per second. The two things we can do is increase the head. And if you double the head, then you just double the energy storage. If you double the volume of water, then you just double the energy storage. So mass and head are the two things you can do to make a larger energy store or a smaller. So now I'm going to just discuss the 3 main cost drivers. That's the reservoirs, the tunnel, and the powerhouse, which contains the pump turbine. So that equation again, energy storage is mass times water times gravity times head. As with all engineering endeavors, if you make something bigger, it usually gets cheaper per unit. So something that's 10 times bigger might only cost 5 times as much, which means the cost per unit of energy storage has halved. So if you try and do pumped hydro at the 100 megawatt level, you'll waste your money. You're better off buying batteries. If you're at the gigawatt level, now you're talking. That's where pumped hydro lives, at the 0.5 gigawatt up to 10 or 20 gigawatt level. And ASEAN will need power at the multi-tens of gigawatt level spread across all those countries. So don't think of pumped hydro as 200 or 300 megawatts. Buy a battery. But if you want gigawatts, you go for pumped hydro. And don't think of 1 or 2 hours of storage for pumped hydro. Pumped hydro lives overnight, 10 hours, 20 hours, 50 hours, 200 hours. So big power, big energy is pumped hydro. Small energy, small power is batteries. So with the reservoirs, which represents energy, that's how much water you've got and how the altitude between them, the head. Very clearly, you want the largest head you can get, because if you've got 2 systems that look almost the same, but one's got double the head of the other, then that will have twice the energy storage for the same price of making the reservoirs. Big head matters. And you really want to be up in the 600 to 1600 meter range. You know, don't worry about anything that's less than 400 or 500 meters unless it's special for some other reason. And ASEAN has got so many sites with 1,000-meter heads. It's a question of throwing away 99% of them and only choosing the very, very best. Okay, so big head is important. And the other important parameter of a reservoir is the water to rock ratio, the WR ratio. You want to be able to dam up a huge amount of water by moving a small amount of rock. So you're looking for a landform that looks like this, that goes through a little gorge, you can pour rock into that gorge, and then it widens up beyond that gorge to make a very large amount of water for a small amount of rock, because the cost of the reservoirs you scoop the rock out from upstream of the dam and you put it on the dam, and that's how you make your reservoir. And in our atlas, we've got a particularly simple way of costing. We just assumed a rock-filled reservoir with very little concrete, just a micro spillway somewhere. And we assumed a 3-to-1 batter. That means that it has a profile looking like that orange cartoon, where the slope of the reservoir, each side of the crest is 3-to-1. The crest is 10 meters wide, and the water can come to within 1.5 meters of the top of the dam. Very important point about off-river pumped hydro, there is no river. That means you do not need to plan for a 1 in 10,000 year flood. So you can have a dam that would never survive on a river because the next flood would destroy it. Well, there isn't a flood on off-river pumped hydro. You've just got rid of about 1/3 or half of your total costs because you have no need for flood control. So that cartoon at the bottom is the assumed shape of all of our reservoirs, and the cost is roughly equal to the cost of moving rock per cubic meter times the number of cubic meters in that dam. And you want as much water filled up behind that dam as possible. So a large water to rock ratio. So that's head and water to rock ratio are the two things that count for reservoirs. Now the pressure tunnel. Pressure tunnels are expensive. If you've got a 1,000-meter head, there's a huge amount of pressure there. You've got to design that tunnel, probably line it with concrete, do all sorts of things to make sure that that tunnel does not collapse. They're expensive per kilometre. And you've also got risk when you're drilling that you come across weak rock and you just added 30% to the cost of your system because you've got to reinforce that rock and so forth. So the pressure tunnel should be short and steep. In fact, this is a typical schematic of a pressure tunnel. You can see there's a low pressure part of it, which is relatively cheap. So you still got to drill a tunnel. Then there's a steep bit where the pressure is dropped. And then there's a tail race, which goes out to where the power station is located at the bottom. And that water then goes through the turbine, spins that turbine, and creates the electricity. So you want a short and steep tunnel. And if you've got the opportunity for an aqueduct, then you can have widely separated reservoirs. So an aqueduct is cheap. You're just digging out a hole in the ground to the top of a steep section, and then an expensive, short, steep tunnel. So you can encapsulate that metric with slope. That's the separation, the head divided by the separation. Big head is really good. Short separation is really good. In other words, a slope bigger than 8 or 10% is really good. If the slope is down at 2 or 3%, you're going to be paying a lot for your tunnel. So again, big head, short separation. In other words, large slope. Now the powerhouse, which is a cavern, which costs some money, but not a huge amount compared with the pump turbine. And again, head helps. If you've got double the head, then you can afford, there's double the pressure on your pump turbine, and you can make your pump turbine smaller for the same power. So again, head is important. Big head is great for lower costs of the powerhouse. And again, high power, a larger rather than a smaller system makes cheaper per unit. So putting it all together, here are the main cost drivers. There's lots and lots of detail, of course, but in the main, these are the cost drivers, and these are the ones that we pick up in our model. Our cost model does not give you an accurate cost of a pumped hydro system. What it does do is say that this one is better than that one is better than that one. But if you become interested in a particular site, that's when you have to go to an engineering company and get detailed geological, hydrological, environmental, sociological, technical, and cost information. That's not what the Atlas does. The Atlas points you to the general area where there are good sites, and then you hire skilled consulting companies to actually choose the best out of the options at that site. So scale, go for scale, gigawatts, tens of gigawatt hours. Head is the most important of the geographical parameters because it reduces the cost of the reservoirs and the tunnel and the pump turbine. So head is important. But there are some complications. The typical Francis turbine probably doesn't go much over 800 meters, so you might need a specialized turbine, or you might, if you've got 1600 meter head, you might have an intermediate power station. So you have an 800 meter rated turbine halfway down, and then another one. So you've got the advantage of 1600 meter head to halve the cost of your reservoirs, but you've still got to have two powerhouses. With the reservoirs, the main cost is moving the rock. So make sure that the water to rock ratio is big, 10 or something like that. You get 10 gigalitres of water dammed up behind 1 gigalitre of rock. The pressure tunnel, short and steep, 8 or 10% slope is great. Many places in ASEAN have 20 or 30% slope. This is just mind-bogglingly good. And the pump turbine, again, big head, big scale. So let's have a look at this one, which it's just fun browsing. I mean, in Australia, we're fairly flat. The best head that we found in Australia is about 1,100 meters. In Indonesia in particular, and Laos and Vietnam and a few other countries, there's just 1,500, 1,600 meter heads all over the place, and probably 2,600 if we looked. But at the moment, our cost model tops out at 1,600. So this one is 5,000 gigawatt hours. Indonesia needs 3 of this size when it is fully affluent and fully decarbonized in 2050. So when Indonesia has caught up with Singapore and Australia for per capita energy consumption and then doubled it to decarbonize everything with no fossil fuels, you need 3 of these. Of course, you probably wouldn't choose to have 3 of that size. You might have 20 or 30 of somewhat smaller size and spread around all the various islands. But it's rated class AAA, which is the best class, and it's got a great head and a great water to rock ratio and a great slope. And shortly, we'll get you to all open up the Pumped Hydro Atlas and go to your country and go to a place that you actually have been to, that you actually know, and then try and see if you can envisage where that potential pumped hydro site would be. But there are other possibilities. When we went to Sarawak in January, we were taken to Bakun, which is the largest largest hydroelectric system in Sarawak. And Sarawak is very interested in floating several tens of gigawatts of solar on Bakun and Murum, which is the second largest reservoir. And we noticed that they're actually quite close. They're only 12 kilometers apart. Now, if you had to build the height difference is only 300 meters. That's a pretty miserable head. And if you would not choose to build a pressure tunnel that had a head of 300 meters and was 12 kilometers long, that would be a fairly expensive tunnel. But it just so happens that it's almost flat as you move upstream from Bakun, right up to very close to Murum. And you can have a 3 kilometer long, 300 meter head pressure tunnel. And then an aqueduct, which is quite cheap, which is just digging dirt out. And here, you've got some mind-boggling opportunities. And I think we'll find other similar opportunities in places like Laos or other places that have got lots of hydro. It's worth looking to see whether an aqueduct plus pressure tunnel could do the job to make mind-bogglingly good large-scale pumped hydro with very little effort. So it turns out that when you do the sums, there's 4,000 gigawatt hours of storage in that twin system. And this would be by far the biggest pumped hydro system in the world. It's 10 times larger than the big one being constructed at the moment in Australia called Snow 2.0. And you could attach 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 50 gigawatts of power to it by putting in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 tunnels. And you can just do a tunnel every few years as your power demand grows. You've got so much water that you'll still have weeks of storage, even when you've got 10 gigawatts of power running between those two reservoirs. So you can imagine 10, 20 gigawatts of solar pushing water uphill during the day, and then at night it comes back down, and then you transmit a steady stream of 10 gigawatt power to Singapore, Sabah, Kalimantan, Peninsula Malaysia, the rest of Sarawak. There's so many opportunities when you look closely at within your country to get mind-bogglingly large amounts of storage for astoundingly small amounts of money. Have a look. So those are the three atlases that we're going to ask that everyone open on their laptops. So perhaps if you could go to those sites now, and if you just Google Global Solar Atlas, Global Pumped Hydro Atlas, Global Wind Atlas, you'll find them, and then we can discuss.
Thank you very much, Professor Andrew, for the insightful presentations. So we're going into the interactive sessions right now. So if you will please, for the participants to open up the three websites. And after this, the ANU team are going to go separately into the tables and then helping out participants to work on the global atlas on wind and solar and also in hydro pump storage. So it's going to be interactive sessions. Thank you very much.
Pumped hydro atlases. Yeah, that's it. And then down a bit. So you see the selection of atlases. And let's just start with the Greenfield Atlas. And let's go up to, say, southern Sumatra. Does, if you've got a mouse, just pan, that's right, yeah? No, sorry, click on the map. No. Yeah, move sideways, yeah. Now there's zoom in using the mouse wheel. So you can zoom in with the mouse wheel. And what you're looking for are deep red sites. They're the best ones. Pale sites are class E or D. Dark red are class A. And class A is divided into A, AA, AAA. AAA is best. AAA is a star. AA is a triangle. A is a circle. And roughly speaking, a AAA site will cost 1/3 the capital cost of a class B site. So there's some extraordinarily good sites in ASEAN. Okay, so just zoom in and look for a star site or a triangle, and then just keep zooming in. So as you zoom in, it resolves into upper and lower reservoirs. Light blue is upper, dark blue is lower, connected with a tunnel. And then just keep zooming in. There's a star, okay? So click on the star. See the, yeah. If you click on the star, which is the tunnel route, then you get a pop-up which contains information about the combined reservoirs. So this one is class AAA, which is the best. It's got a head of 1,100 meters, a separation of 8 kilometers, average slope between the upper and lower of 14%. So that's a short and steep pressure tunnel. There's a volume of 63 gigaliters of water. The is that? Then if you click on an individual reservoir, just click on, just go back in. You can use the mouse wheel. Yeah, click on one of the reservoirs and you get a different pop-up. Click on any of the reservoirs. No, that's, you want the reservoir rather than the tunnel. Yeah, that'll do. So this is clicking on a particular reservoir. You get the elevation of the reservoir, 450 meters. That's the altitude. You get the latitude and longitude. You get the area of the reservoir in hectares, the volume of water of the reservoir, the maximum height of the dam wall, which in this case is 74 meters, the dam length, which is 4.5 kilometers, the volume of the dam, the amount of rock, which in this case was 12 gigaliters, and the water to rock ratio, and the country again. Okay, now click on the X, and again, click on that X as well. You get rid of that. Go up to the X here. Now, if you go up to map settings, and if you click on map settings and choose 3D terrain and wait till it reloads, then you can get a tilted 3D, pseudo 3D view. And you can pan around and see what the landscape looks like. So now zoom in, just slowly on one of the reservoirs. And then tilt using the mouse. Hold on. So you can see that you can tilt it by just holding the mouse wheel and then moving the mouse forwards or backwards. And so you can start to visualize what the landscape actually looks like. Notice that there's a pane on the left-hand side, and you can choose any size from 2 gigawatt hours up to, well, actually it goes up to 5,000 gigawatt hours. So 5,000 gigawatt hours is really big. ASEAN will need about 7 of these when it's fully affluent, fully decarbonized in mid-century. So anything from 2, which is a toy, and competing with batteries, up to 5,000 gigawatt hours, which is seriously large storage on a global scale.
And after this, we will still have one more presentation from the Australian National University. So without further ado, I would like to invite Pak David Silawahi to the stage. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilham. So in this session, we will continue with premium sites of river pump hydro storage in ASEAN. So, yeah. So, as Andrew and Ali explained in the previous sessions, our group have developed the Pump Hydro Atlas. It's about 1 million sites. But the question is how to understand how to select the best site to develop. So in this session, I will try to explain this because we have so many. For example, here you can see ASEAN is in the purple cover layer here. You can see that. So we have so many sites here. So energy planners can be so choosy, selecting the very best one. So only the best, only the A, AA, and AAA class. So in this map, we already exclude the protected areas. So don't worry about that. You can choose any site. It's already excluding the well protected area. And we also prefer the large scale, 5,000 gigawatt hour, 1,500 gigawatt hour, 500 gigawatt hour, and also we have like small. If you want to try, have a look at the atlas, like 2 gigawatt hour, 5 gigawatt hour, and so on. But we prefer the best site, which has large scale, large hydraulic head, large water to rock ratio, and also large head separation ratio, like Andrew already explained. So this is the step-by-step that how we develop, how do we create the premium site. So from the 4 atlases, greenfield, brownfield, bluefield, and ocean, we choose only class A, 50 gigawatt hour and above. And then we regroup the sites into 3 classes. AAA is 1/3 or below 33% of benchmark cost. And then AA, 33 up to 66 of benchmark cost. And then above 66.7% up to 100 is A class. And then we will have 4 groups: greenfield, A, AA, and AAA, brownfield, bluefield, and ocean. So we only use the best sites. So we try to have it dispersed, not in one location. For example, for Indonesia, we have Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and so on. So we try to put it 1 in Sumatra, 2 in Java, for example, and so on. And then we only choose the big or the large scale. And at last, we try to provide as much as we can. So provide much more than modern energy storage requirement. Let's say ASEAN need 43 terawatt hours, so we can select more than that. So this is how it looks like in ASEAN. So 5,000 gigawatt hour sites, we have it 62 sites, AAA, AAA class 50, AA 11, and A1. So this is in Indonesia, we have 19 AAA class. Myanmar has 14, Laos has 9, Vietnam 5, and Malaysia 3. But if we compare the potential and the requirement is for Indonesia, we have 125 terawatt hour, but we only need about 17 terawatt hour. So the existing 5,000 gigawatt hour is far more than we require. So this, for Indonesia, we need only 3 sites of 5,000 gigawatt hour. We can find it on this map. It's all the stars is in Sumatra, and also AA in Java, and many of AAA is in Kalimantan and Sulawesi. So this is the summary of the best sites. So this is how the best sites compared to Australia. For example, in Australia, they has 600 meters for 5,000 gigawatt hour, but in Indonesia we have 1,000 head. This is the trend that we have. And for Vietnam, even better. 1100 meters. And we can see the water to rock ratio as well. So in ASEAN, we have 22 water to rock ratio. In Australia, they have 3. So we have better than Australia. Yeah, this is for 1500 gigawatt hour premium sites. We have like 10 times compared to 5,000. So we have like 640 sites. Most of it is we have the best class. Malaysia has 18, Vietnam 31, Laos 34, Myanmar 53. So it's far more than required. It's the summary is like this. You will have this slide, don't worry. And too many numbers. Just skip this. Yep. Yeah, we have so many potential, and we will go to jump into Java. We have these sites in it's I cannot point out there. So for example here, this site is 5,000 gigawatt hour. So this is how it looks like. The lower reservoir will need a flooded area 40 kilometers square, the upper reservoir half, and we have 1,000 meter head. And this is only about 22 kilometers away from existing 500 kilovolt transmission line. The upper reservoir and the lower reservoir also 22 kilometers away from the 500 kV transmission line. So it means like if we want this site, it's not far from the transmission line. So the cost for adding more transmission line to connect to the system is cheap. It's separated only 20 kilometers away. This is in Central Java. We also has this site in Sulawesi, AAA. But the head only less than in Java, it's 650 meters, but it's close, only 6 kilometers from upper reservoir to the lower reservoir. So it's still the best site in Sulawesi. Sorry, in Kalimantan. So in Sumatra, we also have so many sites. It's around Lake Toba. So in terms of these pump storage will need water, they can get it from Lake Toba. So many water available there. So for example here, AA, AAA, A, we have it a lot of around Lake Toba. So we can build everywhere in North Sumatra. So this is how it looks like, the 500 gigawatt hour premium sites in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and Philippines. And this is another site, AAA in Indonesia as well, because so many potential. Yeah, I want to show you this one. Size does matter. So if you want to have an efficient system, so we have to build it in a large scale. So for example, for this, we can compare 1,500 gigawatt hour, or we build 1,500 gigawatt hour. So this is in the same location. Yeah, so the same location, we can choose to have 1,500 gigawatt hour or 100 gigawatt hour. So with the same challenges, we have to procure the land, we have to build the tunnel, the powerhouse, and so on. But if we upscale to make it 3 times bigger, so we can lower the cost. So for example, here in the left side with the 1500 gigawatt hour, it costs $200 per kilowatt, $13 per kilowatt hour. But when we triple the size, we get the lower cost, much lower cost, $3-4 per kilowatt and $7 per kilowatt hour. So in the same location, we add like dump the wall to make it bigger, then we can increase the size. So that means we produce an effective cost pump hydro storage. Yeah, I think that's it, my presentation for this session. So the point is, ASEAN has a lot of best potential. You can choose 10 out of thousands and so on. And you can have a look for every ASEAN member states, wherever you want. Probably you know this is the best site, this is, I know so well. So please, if you have any question, so I think many in your mind. So we have still discussion session, right? All right, I give it back to Ilham.
Thank you very much, Pak David, and also Prof. Andrew for the insightful. So we're to sum up, I think hopefully we already have hands-on on the website, and then also we understand how to use the potential, and we already know that ASEAN has a lot of potential about AAA potential sites, and also I think like the premium sites like 550 or 62 in ASEAN, and there's just so many. And in that regard, I will invite the participants if there's any questions, or maybe is there any feedback, that will be very much appreciated. So please, is there anyone who would like to probably have questions or maybe feedback? Oh, the solar and wind atlas as well. Yeah, sure. Then.
Global Wind Atlas, and these are also high resolution atlases, and you can go and have a look and just check whether your country, your region within your country has good wind, and exactly where that good wind is. Solar is everywhere, but wind in particular depends on landform, and the Global Wind Atlas is incredibly useful for getting a good idea of immediately of what sort of potential you have in this particular area. So if anyone wants to open the Global Wind Atlas, just search for Global Wind Atlas and you'll find it, and we'll wander around and just show you briefly how to use that. The important point is that on the top left-hand pane, you open a little dialog box and choose something like IEC 2, which is a mid-range turbine, and then you get the capacity factor directly from clicking on a particular point. With the Global Solar Atlas, it lets you put in a little dummy, a rooftop solar or a solar farm, and gives you all sorts of information about how that solar farm would work in that particular area, with that particular azimuth and elevation. In other words, tilted up, flat on its back, tilting, facing this direction, that direction. It gives you month by month information on how much solar will be produced. And so the Solar Atlas, the Wind Atlas, and the Global Pumped Hydro Atlas give you all you need for an initial survey of your country and your state to see whether you've got something that's really worth pursuing. So I suggest you do look at the Global Solar and Global Wind Atlases as well. Oh, yeah. So you can see the capacity factor, IEC. I click on the class 2, which class 3 is really for really windy areas, which I don't think applies to ASEAN except very occasionally when it's far too windy, like in the Philippines when the storm comes through. and it loads slowly, but eventually it does load. And that colored bar shows you the capacity factor. So capacity factor below 30% is really ordinary. Above 60% is where do I sign? And in between is interesting as well. So you can see that Australia has got plenty, but the Philippines has got plenty, Vietnam has got plenty, but a lot of ASEAN has not very good wind. So you're going to rely on solar, but your solar is really good, and importantly, it's not seasonal. So in Australia, we have a 2-to-1 between summer sun and winter sun in the south. In Europe, it might be 6-to-1, whereas in ASEAN, it might be 1-to-1 or 1.5-to-1. So that means you don't need seasonal storage. Okay, if you could open the dialog box on the right-hand side, there's a tray which should open. Get rid of that. That welcome to Global Solar at last. Just. So on the Global Solar Atlas, Australia looks really good. But remember, people don't live in most of Australia. We live in the southeast coast mostly, where it is better than ASEAN on average, but not very much better. But in winter, we're not better than ASEAN. So when people say, oh, Australia, lots of solar because you've got so much sun. Well, actually what counts is winter sun in Australia, and it is not better than ASEAN sun. ASEAN can do almost as well as Australia. Click PV out. Oh, no, sorry, not that one. Should be a tray. There's usually a tray on the right-hand side. Try PB study on the top in the blue. No, not that one. Now you're looking for a tray on the right-hand side, which seems to have vanished in this view. No. Press the, what about that little open box just above, just down, 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 up, 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 up. Next one. Yeah, that one. What's it? Okay, so you ask, that was it. Would we possibly open again?
So he's going through it. The second question is from you.
There should be a tray. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I can't see how to. It's not showing. Yeah. Okay, click that. See that little arrow to the right? Yeah, okay. So now we have a dialog box. And if you go down a little bit further, zoom down a bit further. Let's choose ground mounted large scale. So just click choose under there. Then you can change the default system. So if you click change default system, you can change the size, the azimuth, the tilt, the system size. But anyway, let's just leave it all as it defaults to what is theoretically perfect for that latitude. So let's just go back up and yeah, go back. That's right. Yeah, and then you can, if you go down a bit, open detail. So it gives you the gigawatt hours per year for the megawatt system. And you've clicked on a particular point, it'll give you all sorts of information about how much energy you can get out of it for that particular design. If you go down a little bit further, horizon and sun path, there's a lot of information available, and you can do a pretty good first pass estimate of how much solar you'll get out at that particular point for that particular design. And you can then go in and change the design and see what happens if you have the panels steep or shallow or tilted south or north or whatever. And you can see the hourly profiles, and there's more information as well if you keep going down. This is the graph on the left is something that's really interesting. That's the output across the year. You can see it varies from 100 to 150. That's a ratio of 1 to 1.5. In my country, it's 2. In Germany, it's 6.
Thank you, Prof. Andrew, for the additional PV and also solar and also wind atlas. So in today's discussion, we have discussed about global pump hydro storage atlas and also the solar and also the wind